Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with popular requests. Well, popular in classical music means that one of you mentioned it. Is Essential Works for Beginners by Ravel. Well, Ravel is one of those easy guys to do. He's kind of like Chopin because his output was quite limited, and he's known for a handful of really, really popular works, but virtually everything he wrote was of an extraordinarily high quality. And in Ravel's case, things fall into two broad categories: piano works and orchestral works, most of which are orchestrations of piano works. With that said, he was, of course, one of the greatest orchestrators that ever lived. And I have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things that you should have in your collection. Absolutely essential to get your Ravel going. And then once you have them, you can expand. I mean, there's only so much room to expand with Ravel because, like I said, his output was tiny considering, just how famous he is. But then you can get into the other stuff, or you'll just get dozens and dozens of recordings of the same thing, which is what happened to me. Because once you get one batch of things, you're going to find someone else does another collection with one other thing that's different, and all the others are things you've already heard. It's just that way. Nothing he wrote was very long. I mean, there are a couple things. We'll talk about them. But essentially, his music is in the, 10 to 15 minute range, 8 to 15 minute range. So there's going to be a lot of overlapping. And so we begin with Bolero. I love Bolero. I know some people are snooty and say they don't like Bolero because it's just the same, two tunes repeated in alternation over and over and over again for 15 minutes. Ravel himself quite deprecatingly called it 15 minutes of orchestration without music, and was annoyed that it became so popular. But, who cares? You can't second guess yourself, or popular taste for that matter. It just is what it is. And Ravel being one of the greatest orchestrators that ever lived, and Bolero being nothing but an exercise in orchestration, well, you do the math. You've got to have Bolero. It's so much fun. It's delightful to listen to. And if you think it's a bit much, you don't have to listen to it every 5 minutes. Play it as often as you like, but you got to know it. Ravel is Bolero, and Bolero is Ravel. There's no getting around it. Next, Gaspard de la Nuit, one of the most amazing piano tone poems of the 20th century. And Ravel wrote a limited and very selective amount of piano music, much of which was orchestrated. So we're not going to go into the piano originals, except I'll let you know where they exist, which is almost everywhere. And so you can do it however you want. Gaspard de la Nuit, however, was de la Nuit. I said de la Nuit. It's not Gaspard de la Nuit. It sounds like Gaspard de l'ennui, which would be Gaspard of boredom, which is not at all what it is. We're talking about, what is this? I have no idea what I'm doing. No, it's absolutely fabulous, and you're going to love it. You're absolutely going to love it. It is creepy. It's an illustration of 3 rather bizarre poems. And the first is Ondine. Ondine is, of course, a water sprite who lures men to their death, and it's very sensual and glittering and just oodles of fun. And after that, you get Le Gibet. That is the hangman's noose, basically, where you've got a corpse swinging in the breeze. It's very, very spooky and absolutely marvelous. I'm playing with my little control here, so give me a second. I just want to get myself back to where I was. There we go. And it's just amazingly creepy, hypnotic, metronomic. At one point, a little spider crawls down the rope holding the noose. The body swing. I mean, it's grotesque. And the whole piece is that way, actually. I mean, it's, Ravel is, because he's so pretty and because so much of what he did is like fairy tale-y, people kind of think that his music is nice. It's like just nice music. But fairy tales can be terrifying. The Grimm fairy tales are terrifying. And this is one of those pieces. And the final work is Scarbo, the final movement, which is one of the most difficult and virtuosic pieces ever written for the piano. Scarbo is a twisted little demon gnome thing, evil evil, evil character. It's exciting as hell. It's just fantastic. So Gaspard de la Nuit is just one of those piano pieces you really, really have to know, and you'll enjoy it. And it gives an entirely different slant to our view of Ravel. Next, Mother Goose, Ma Mère, the complete ballet. Now, this exists in a version for single piano and a version for two pianos and as an orchestral suite in 5 little parts. But then he expanded it into a full-length ballet, in this case, full-length being less than half an hour. I mean, it's 29 minutes or so. And it is magical. This is the fairy tale Ravel at his absolute finest. It's written for an elite chamber ensemble, and there's nothing like it. It's glorious, and I can only say it's one of my favorite pieces in the world. It transports you into an imaginary realm of perfect. What's the word for it? Oh, I don't know. Perfect. Just denial of everything real. That's the word. I guess the words. It's amazing. It's amazing. So next, after that, Le Tombeau de Couperin. This is neoclassical Ravel. Couperin was, of course, the great French composer of harpsichord pieces, dozens and dozens, hundreds of fabulous little harpsichord pieces. And there are 2 versions of Le Tombeau de Couperin. There's a piano original, and then there's the orchestral version, which leaves out a couple of movements, although they've been orchestrated by other people in the time since. This is a work for chamber orchestra. It doesn't have any exotic anything going on. It has the most virtuosic oboe solo at the opening. It's just for chamber orchestra with harp, basically. It's the only unusual movement, instrument in the work. And it's again, it has moments of such wonderful beauty. The title means Couperin's grave. A tombeau is a piece in memorial, a musical piece written as a memorial to somebody else. So it's a memorial to Couperin, and it doesn't quote anything by Couperin literally. It just has that elegance and that wonderful clarity. Everything that Ravel did, here's the word I was thinking of, is escapist. There we go. Mother Goose is escapist, and so is Le Tombeau de Couperin. Where he's escaping to varies from work to work. Sometimes it's ancient Greece, sometimes it's the world of fairy tales, sometimes it's the world of nightmares, sometimes it's Baroque or classical France, but he's always escaping. Next, the piano concertos. They always come coupled on a disc, so there's no point in picking one over the other, and they're so different that they're both worth hearing. Of course, they are 2 absolute masterpieces. The first is for the left hand alone. It's one of the most amazing pieces of virtuosity because, the joke is that it was written for 3 left hands because it's very, very difficult. And, you're all over the keyboard just with one hand. It's fascinating. I've seen it played many times. It's really an extraordinary piece of music. And then the other one in G major, which has in its slow movement one of the most poetic and escapistly lyrical things you've ever heard in your life. Ravel wrote it at the very end of his life. He was having difficulty at that point writing. He had some sort of neurological disease that prevented him from composing, and at the end, he just sort of dried up. Who knows? It could have been something like ALS, because eventually he just sort of disintegrated himself. He escaped entirely. But the 2 piano concertos are classic and iconic works in the 20th century repertoire, and no Ravel collection, not even a starter one, could be complete without those. Then we've got his big ballet, Daphnis and Chloé, his choreographic symphony, Daphnis et Chloé, where he's escaping to ancient Greece. And wow, does he ever escape? It's a gorgeous, continuous, hour-long extravaganza. Many people consider it his masterpiece. I'm not so sure. I think it's a great work. Don't get me wrong. It's an amazing work, but he wrote a lot of amazing works. But that's one of the things that absolutely has to be part of your collection. And it's a glorious work, and it's fun. And it ends with this huge orgy, a bacchanal with a screaming, wordless choir moaning and carrying on. And you're going to love it. And last but not least, pictures at an exhibition. This, of course, is not by Ravel. It's by Mussorgsky. But Ravel's orchestral arrangement is so fabulous. It's better known. It's much better known than the piano original. It's one of the glories of the orchestral repertoire. It is as much Ravel as it is Mussorgsky, to be honest with you. I mean, he corrects some of the harmonies. He left out a little movement here or there to make this his own arrangement. He made the piece his own, completely his own. And it's such an amazing bit of orchestration. And he's escaping to Russia. He's escaping. At the end, the Great Gate of Kiev is just one of the surefire masterpiece, bring them to their feet, crowd pleasers in the entire repertoire. It is just an astonishing act of love and orchestral mastery, and it neatly summarizes all that makes Ravel so amazingly Ravelian. That is a word, Ravelian. That's the adjective, in case you're curious. And so there you have it, my friends. Start with that stuff. If you want more piano works, well, they only take up 2 discs. There's the string quartet, his major chamber work, and a couple other chamber pieces, but not many. There are a few other orchestral pieces and 2 pretty terrific operas. 1-act operas, very short, an hour long each, basically. L'Enfant et les Sortilèges and L'Heure Espagnole. And that's Ravel. It's really kind of cool. Some songs, some orchestral songs, Scheherazade for song cycle things. And yeah, I mean, if you like some of it, you'll probably like all of it. But this is the kernel of what I think a good Ravel collection should contain, and the best way to get started. And take your time. Savor each bit of it. He took his time. Every bit that he wrote was a polished jewel, and they should be savored slowly and lovingly, not casually and if you're in a hurry. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me, and take care.